was the 9-time coast to coast winner, record holder. The closest anyone came was 3 times, and that was John Jacoby. And yeah, so I had a bit of an ego about it. It was until I heard about this particular other inspirational Kiwi.
I told you about my 2 great-great-uncles, and in 1890 or 1889 they dragged 2 80-pound, 40-kilogram Rob Roy canoes, did that first coast to coast, and then went out to the coast and then saw that he could make a trip to Christchurch, so he hopped in his boat and he paddled right the way down the coast.
Coast to coast?
Coast to coast, coast to coast. So we decided to retrace George and James's trip just to see who the real coast to coast legend was.
We decided Stevie Moffatt would have to do it as George and James would have, and we got a replica boat made, all 40 kgs of it, a wooden one, and we said, right, Steve has to do it as using the same resources that were available in those days. Like he had to...
You're a mean bastard sometimes, Gurney.
There was no Gore-tex or neoprene for him. He had to use as George did. We found out he slept in a woolen blanket, and he just had oilskins and woolly tops and that sort of stuff. And also the same diet that George would have used, you know, just roast beef sandwiches and dried fruit and that sort of stuff, and whatever was available in those days, but no packaged food or anything convenient like that.
So, and we decided that Gurney would do it with everything modern. So he had an inflatable sea kayak, and he had Gore-tex, he had light stuff, he had lovely dehydrated food, and because we really wanted to get a little message across here.
Yeah, so I even had GPSs and things like that. And so we wanted to run a comparison to see how it was, you know, what sort of comments we came up with as we were doing the journey, how hard it really was for George having all that sort of old stuff, and how easy it was for me having all that modern stuff.
So I went to Ian Franklin when I needed a replica, and he created Frankie. And I'm most grateful to Ian and his team. They did a fantastic job, and I'm going to use Frankie for lots of other trips. And hopefully,
if you don't smash it up.
If we don't smash it up, and hopefully he's going to get passed down the generations of parks.
Yeah, I had a lot of choices. I could have used Kevlar, carbon fibre things, but I went for an inflatable because I could roll it up and put it in my pack, which means I didn't have to manoeuvre it through the trees and things. Also, it was half the weight. And the other good thing about it too, when I hit rocks, it didn't matter. It was just like a raft, you know, it just bounces off.
So in sails, we certainly had different sails, didn't we? What did you use?
Well, I chose a Pacific Action. It was a pop-up sail. It was very quick and easy to use, very light, very safe, and reliable, really reliable. For part of the trip, I tried one of these kite surfing kites. I do a bit of kite surfing, and I used this.
Whose was that?
It's Cabrina, a convert. It was a little 3.5 metre square metre one, tiny really, and very manoeuvrable. I could zigzag it through the sky, which gave me more thrust.
It was incredibly fast, wasn't it?
It was very fast, but you need a lot of skill to use it, and by far the most reliable, safe and easy to use was those Pacific Action sails.
My sail was based on what George and James would have used. It's a little gaff rigged sail, and Ron McFarlane made that for me at very short notice, and I'm really grateful to Ron for doing that.
And that was also his little tent. He had
Was.
a tiny thing, didn't really cover him.
No, that's right. No, it wasn't much good. So now, Tucker.
Well, I use Backcountry Foods. They have these dehydrated, quick-dried, well, freeze-dried meals. A whole meal in a little foil container. Just rip the top off, add hot water, and in 10 minutes you got a whole meal. It's really convenient. Plus I use some lepin powder because it's high calories per weight.
My food was, when we decided that we were going to do it old and new, I went and saw Bronnie King, a nutritionalist, and she set me up with the food that George and James would have taken in the 1890s. And we worked on something like 5,000 calories a day, which over the length of the trip probably worked out about right. But there were a couple of days there, probably 3 days, Stevie, when I was probably doing 10,000. And then when we had a couple of days cruising down the coast, I was probably only using 3. So it worked out fine.
And Sandy showed us how to make billy bread, and it came with a warning.
Yeah, and the warning was that you've got to be really careful, because once you've tried billy bread, you'll never want to eat any other sort of bread.
And it was delicious, but I think the key to it is it's fresh. You see, you eat it straight away, and you know how bread tastes fantastic when it's fresh. Then clothing.
Clothing, again, we had to look at what they were using, and they did use oilskins in those days, and that oilskin stuff has gone through the generations. It's still being manufactured now very effectively. A lot of horse riders and equine people still use oilskin. And I was really fortunate that Noel Boyle at Backhouse Clothing in Wanganui came up with a whole lot of material for me, and creative Karen Gurney turned it into the type of clothing that I needed. It worked out really well.
It was a lot heavier though than what I used, and of course I had the luxury of neoprene and Gore-tex and all these high-tech fibres. Interestingly, I still prefer merino next to my skin, but apart from that I had much lighter clothing than Steve did. The smell of oilskin pervaded everything though, which is actually quite nice. I'm used to racing coast to coast in one day. This would be 13 days of grovelling with a heavy boat and lots of gear. Towing the kayaks up rapids and small waterfalls on the Taramakau River, it'd be easy to sink or damage the boats on rocks. The altitude gain over Harper Pass would be hard enough without the chance of tripping and slipping and smashing the boat on rocks. Paddling down the Hurunui River, source to sea, would be fun but dangerous with the 3 gorges of Class 3 whitewater. Once out at the sea, there'd be a whole new set of challenges. There's the cliffs with limited landing spots, big swells, and George even mentioned sharks.
Just about to leave, just waiting for Gurney to organise this new inflatable.
But I'm thinking, let's just get it right, we can't come back. I must say, and I'm not exaggerating, carrying that kayak up Harper Pass was one of the hardest things I've done. Because we'd like haul it 20 metres and have to stop for a couple of minutes to get our heart rate back down again. And it wasn't the endurance aspect, it was just the sheer grunt. And the track was only this sort of wide, and it was all slippery boulders and this steep in places. In fact, we had to double up. We had to go drop the boats at the top and go back and get our gear. Okay, I'm going to go up onto here, okay? 3, 2, 1. You hold it there. I just don't know how George and James Park did it. And what seems the quick time, just looking at it. They had 2 days to take their gear up. Well, the first day they took their gear up, the second day they took 2 boats up. And man, we've just taken 1 boat up and we just shattered.
The hardest thing I've done in my life. It's not the weight of the boat. The boat weighs 40 kilograms, but it's just the difficulty, isn't it, of having to handle it. And we would do 20 metres, and in a minute, and our heart rates we were just maxing out. And it was just so intense, I'm not telling you, but I've got a grin on my face. And I'm going to go from climbing to descending. Woo! Oh.
Yeah, the top of the world! Well, it's been a long day. It was about another 10-hour day, and all the way down the river. We're over Harper Pass now, and we're at the Cameron Hut, which is several hours down the Hurunui. I also like it. It's been really cool today that been bonding even better with Steve. Making good mates, camaraderie, all that sort of stuff, and got good communication going.